Have you ever asked yourself what people that suffer from type 1 and 2 diabetes, prediabetes, obesity, high blood pressure, polycystic ovary syndrome, PCOS, fatty liver disease have in common? Hi, I am Dr. Jean-Pierre Kabongo, health advocate, founder of the HOMESTEADication movement. In my 2 decades of family medicine practice, I have seen how food can make or destroy people. In today's video, I am going to take you through understanding the glycemic index and its role in reversing type 2 diabetes and many other metabolic diseases. But before we talk about the glycemic index, let's take a moment to understand an organ that plays a central role in blood sugar control. The body organ at the center of the genesis of the previously cited diseases, the pancreas. Quick anatomy and physiology of the pancreas. The pancreas is a soft, elongated organ that sits deep in the abdomen, just behind the stomach. You don't feel it, you don't see it, but it works every single day to keep your blood sugar stable. The pancreas has 2 main jobs. First, it helps with digestion by producing enzymes that break down the food we eat. These digestive juices are released into the small intestine. But the second job, and the most important one for today's topic, is blood sugar regulation. Inside the pancreas are tiny clusters of cells called islets. These cells act like sensors, constantly monitoring how much sugar is circulating in the blood. When we eat and blood sugar rises, special cells called beta cells release a hormone known as insulin. Insulin acts like a key. It allows sugar to move from the bloodstream into the body's cells, where it can be used for energy or stored for later. In simple terms, insulin lowers blood sugar by helping sugar leave the blood and enter the cells. Between meals, when blood sugar drops, the pancreas releases another hormone called glucagon, which tells the liver to release stored sugar. This prevents blood sugar from falling too low. So the pancreas constantly maintains balance. Insulin lowers blood sugar, glucagon raises it. Now here's the key point. Different foods raise blood sugar at different speeds. Some foods cause a rapid spike in blood sugar, forcing the pancreas to release insulin quickly and in large amounts. Other foods raise blood sugar slowly and gently, allowing the pancreas to work more smoothly. This difference in how foods affect blood sugar is exactly what the glycemic index measures. So when we talk about the glycemic index, we're not just talking about food. We're talking about how hard the pancreas has to work. Introduction to the glycemic index concept. Glycemic index concept has been misunderstood in nutrition and metabolic health, yet it has revolutionized the management of many metabolic diseases and conditions, from type 1 and 2 diabetes, prediabetes and insulin resistance, metabolic syndrome, obesity, to cardiovascular diseases, polycystic ovary syndrome, PCOS, non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, NAFLD, and many more. Understanding the glycemic index helps explain why certain foods raise blood sugar quickly, why others are more stable, and how food choices can directly influence diseases like insulin resistance, type 2 diabetes, weight, and many other diseases such as cardiovascular diseases like hypertension. Within the HOMESTEADication framework, this topic reinforces a core principle. Food is not just fuel. It is information and often the first medication, which is the major objective of our movement. Make of your food your first medicine. Let's begin. In this video, we are going to talk about what is the glycemic index? Why is it important in the management of diabetes and other metabolic diseases? The history behind the concept of glycemic index. Classification of foods according to their glycemic index. Factors that influence the glycemic index of foods. Impact of the glycemic index concept in the modern management of type 2 diabetes. And finally, the conclusion. A. What is the glycemic index? The glycemic index, often abbreviated as GI, is a numerical scale that measures how quickly a carbohydrate-containing food raises blood glucose levels after it is eaten. Foods are ranked on a scale from 0 to 100, where glucose is given a reference value of 100. Foods that raise blood sugar quickly have a high GI. Foods that raise blood sugar slowly have a low GI, even though they might taste sugary. Like the monk fruit, a plant native of southern China, scientifically named Siratia grosvenori, which tastes so sugary but has a glycemic index of 0. Its natural sweet compounds, called mogrosides, do not raise blood sugar. They are therefore used as natural sweetener for diabetic patients. The same applies to sweet potatoes. Yet sweet/sugary are good food choice for diabetics. They are low to medium GI 44-61 as compared to potatoes which are high GI 70-90. Therefore, sweet potatoes are better choice in managing diabetes mellitus than potatoes that should be avoided. Importantly, the glycemic index does not measure how much carbohydrate a food contains. It measures how fast that carbohydrate enters the bloodstream as glucose. This distinction is critical for understanding metabolic health. B. Why is glycemic index important in type 2 diabetes and weight loss? Type 2 diabetes is fundamentally a condition of insulin resistance. When we regularly consume high glycemic foods, blood sugar rises rapidly. In response, the pancreas releases large amounts of insulin to bring glucose down. Over time, cells become less responsive to insulin. Higher insulin levels are required to stabilize blood sugar. Fat storage increases. Blood sugar control worsens. This cycle drives both type 2 diabetes and weight gain. Excess insulin is the big culprit in the genesis of almost all the metabolic disorders. The conditions where the body struggles to properly process energy, sugars, fats, minerals, or hormones, leading to widespread health consequences. Chronic hyperinsulinemia, a long-term state in which the pancreas secretes persistently elevated levels of insulin, usually as a compensatory response to insulin resistance, in order to maintain normal or near-normal blood glucose levels, is a central upstream driver of modern metabolic disease and cancer. That's why cancer is being reclassified recently, by the way. Not only as neoplastic, but also a metabolic disease by certain researchers. In a nutshell, insulin affects following systems/organs by these mechanisms. Metabolism causing fat storage, glucose dysregulation, endocrine causing B-cell exhaustion leading to diabetes. Cardiovascular causing dyslipidemia, hypertension. Oncology or cancer development inducing cell growth, reduced apoptosis. Reproductive inducing androgen excess, PCOS. Liver inducing lipogenesis, steatosis, aka fatty liver. We now understand and know the cause of hypertension in diabetic patients. In the past, we were talking about 90 to 95% of hypertension being essential hypertension, meaning the cause was not known. Now we know that the cause is through insulin accumulation in the body. In contrast, low glycemic foods produce slower, more gradual rises in blood sugar, which does not trigger massive insulin production. Low GI foods act like a way of tricking the pancreas. When consuming these low GI foods, they still produce energy but not triggering excess insulin production, the culprit in the genesis of many modern diseases, including cancer. As a consequence, there is reduced insulin demand and improvement of insulin sensitivity with overall low circulating insulin levels, which supports fat loss. This is why glycemic index plays a key role in both blood sugar control and secondary weight loss, along with all the other above-mentioned metabolic disorders. C. The history. Dr. David Jenkins and the discovery of glycemic index. The concept of the glycemic index, at the time dietary advice for diabetes focused almost exclusively on total carbohydrate quantity. Dr. Jenkins observed something important. Not all carbohydrates behave the same in the body. He demonstrated that foods with the same carbohydrate content could produce very different blood glucose responses. His landmark 1981 paper introduced the term glycemic index, fundamentally changing how clinicians and researchers understand carbohydrates. This discovery shifted nutrition science from how much carbohydrate to what kind of carbohydrate. A very important concept to master for everyone willing to control the blood sugar and weight, or just willing to live healthier. D. Classification of foods by glycemic index. Foods are commonly grouped into 3 GI categories: low, medium, and high glycemic index food. Low glycemic index, GI 55. These foods raise blood sugar slowly and steadily. Examples include leafy greens and non-starchy vegetables, lentils, chickpeas, black beans, nuts and seeds, barley, quinoa, steel-cut oats, fonio whole-boiled, GI 35-45, teff whole grain injera style, GI 35-45, pearl millet, boiled porridge, GI 40-50, sorghum whole-boiled, GI 45-55, boiled yam, firm not mashed, GI 45-55, boiled sweet potato, GI 44-50, cocoyam, taro boiled, GI 45-50, boiled whole maize, corn on the cob, GI 45 and 55, Bambara groundnut boiled, GI 40-45. These foods should be the base of management. even reversal of many metabolic diseases such as diabetes, mellitus 2, obesity, and others. I'm going to post a list of the commonly used food at the end of this presentation. These foods form the foundation of metabolic healing and should be your first medicine. Moderate glycemic index, GI 5669. These foods cause moderate blood sugar rises. Examples include millet, sorghum, sweet potatoes, especially when baked, brown rice, fonio, taro. These foods can be included strategically, especially when paired with protein, fiber, and healthy fats. What can lower their original glycemic index? High glycemic index, GI 70. These foods raise blood sugar rapidly. Examples include white bread, refined cereals, sugary beverages, pastries and sweets, white rice, instant mashed potatoes. Frequent intake of high GI foods accelerates insulin resistance and worsens metabolic disease. They need to be eliminated from diet or significantly reduced. They play a major role in the genesis of type 2 diabetes, PCOS, obesity, and more other diseases. If so far you haven't subscribed to this channel, please take a second and press on the subscribe button and hit the notification bell so you don't miss such a research-backed contents when they are released. At present, please pay close attention to what I'm about to reveal, as it might change your perception of metabolic diseases forever. They are not fatalities. With dedication and discipline, many can be naturally managed and even reversed. Factors that influence the glycemic index of foods. The glycemic index of a food is modified by factors that change how quickly carbohydrates are digested and absorbed and how fast glucose enters the bloodstream. 1. Role of serving size, portion control in glycemic response. Strictly speaking, serving size does not change the glycemic index, GI, of a food. GI is a fixed property of a food measured using a standard portion containing 50 grams of available carbohydrate. What serving size does change is the glycemic load, GL, not GI. What is the glycemic load, GL? It is a measure that estimates the overall blood glucose impact of a typical serving of food, taking into account both the glycemic index and the amount of carbohydrates consumed. Why serving size still matters clinically. Larger portions increase the total glucose delivered to the bloodstream, leading to higher overall blood glucose rise, greater insulin demand. Smaller portions reduce the magnitude of the glucose response, even if the GI remains the same. In contrary, eat a big portion even of a low GI food. Their negligible increase in insulin will add up. You end up with elevated culprits in your blood that we are avoiding. You can thus destabilize a previously controlled blood sugar. That is why the portion size counts in the management of diabetes. Combining the GI and GL is crucial in the management, especially in reversal of many metabolic diseases. Apply these two principles correctly. You succeed in the management, including reversal of all the metabolic diseases in which excess insulin is the culprit. These start from type 2 diabetes mellitus, prediabetes, hypertension, obesity, fatty liver disease, Alzheimer's dementia, which is currently named type 3 diabetes, and many more other diseases and conditions. 2. Physical factors like processing, particle size, cooking modality, food temperature alter the accessibility of starch to digestive enzymes. Finely milled, well-cooked or liquid foods are digested faster, raising GI. On average, food cooling reduces the glycemic index by 10–30% reduction in GI, depending on the type of starch. Cooking method, cooling duration. When starchy foods are cooked, starch granules gelatinize and become easy to digest. When they are cooled, part of the starch recrystallizes into resistant starch, which is digested more slowly, feeds gut bacteria, produces a lower blood sugar and insulin response. A simple trick that improves blood sugar control without changing the food itself. While intact, minimally processed or cooled foods digest more slowly, lowering GI. So next time, if you want to control your blood sugar, do not eat your rice immediately after cooking it. Let it cool and you can rewarm it. Cooking method, modality impact the food, GI. Boiling often lowers GI. Baking, roasting, and frying tend to raise GI. 3. Chemical factors. Starch type, fiber, fat, protein, acids affect enzymatic breakdown and gastric emptying. Amylose, fiber, fats, proteins, acids, and resistant starch slow digestion and glucose absorption, lowering GI, whereas readily digestible starches and simple sugars raise it. 4. Biological food matrix factors such as ripeness, fermentation, plant structure, influence starch availability and enzyme action. Riper fruits and disrupted plant cells increase GI, while fermentation and intact cell walls reduce it. 5. Physiological factors such as gastric emptying, insulin sensitivity, gut microbiota determine individual glucose responses, modifying the effective GI of the same food between people. 6. Dietary context factors such as food combinations, order of eating, portion size change the overall digestion rate and glucose response, often lowering the GI when carbohydrates are eaten with protein, fat, fiber, or after vegetables. In essence, anything that slows digestion or glucose absorption lowers GI. Anything that speeds them up raises GI. Mixed meals produce a lower glycemic response than carbohydrates eaten alone. This means glycemic control is about patterns, not perfection. I know now what you think. All of these seem to be too complex and complicated. Which food to choose? How to cook it? How much to eat? When and how? At what temperature? How do I have to combine these foods? In order to reap the benefits, that's why I am working on a free electronic guide that I am compiling. It will be only released to our members of the HOMESTEADication family that I am creating online. I mean those who have subscribed to our channel and share their experiences to encourage other people. So do not wait, put your name and email on the list and subscribe if you have not done it. The first 200 members on the list will be the first to receive this electronic guide on how to naturally manage and reverse diabetes mellitus type 2, free of charge as soon as it is released. F. Impact of the glycemic index on modern diabetes management. The discovery of the glycemic index has had a profound impact on how we manage type 2 diabetes today. Clinical studies consistently show that low GI diets improve HbA1c, reduce post-meal glucose spikes, lower insulin levels, support weight loss, reduce cardiovascular risk. Many modern dietary approaches, Mediterranean, plant-forward, whole food, and low-carbohydrate patterns, implicitly apply glycemic index principles even when not named explicitly. GI helps translate nutrition into practical, everyday decisions patients can follow long-term. Let me tell you about one of my multiple patients. Mr. Smith, 42 years old, long-distance truck driver, who usually has no time for and usually neglect his regular checkups. Smith came to see me as advised by his wife. His main concern was struggle to get intimate with his wife, even when he had the desire to. On examination, he was obviously obese with a BMI of 41 and a waist circumference of 123 centimeters. His blood pressure was elevated, 165 101st mm of mercury in the office. I sent him to do some investigations, including fasting blood sugar, fasting insulin, total cholesterol, testosterone, and urine analysis. His testosterone levels were borderline. His fasting blood sugar was 18, his A1C was 11.5%. With high cholesterol, mostly LDL form, his fasting insulin level were 250. He had already some proteins in his urine. This is a typical case of metabolic syndrome with obesity, elevated cholesterol, type 2 diabetes, already complicated with diabetic neuropathy and damages to his vessels. Diabetic neuropathy is nerve damage caused by long-term high blood sugar, leading to tingling, numbness, burning, or pain, most often in the feet and hands. His permanently elevated blood sugar had induced elevated insulin, the cause of his excessive weight gain. His elevated insulin has as well caused damages to his vessels, including those irrigating his private parts and causing his blood pressure to go up. His insulin damaged and stiffened vessels caused his blood pressure to rise, putting him at a high risk of heart attack or stroke. His abdominal obesity affected his testosterone levels. The result is erectile dysfunction, which caused tension between Mr. Smith and his wife. The initial reason for his consultation. I reviewed his diet, which was mostly made of processed food and rapidly absorbed carbs. I advised him to stop his soft drinks consumption and replace them by water, remove dessert, replace his refined carbs with low glycemic index food. Quinoa would replace rice. Sweet potatoes replaced his potato chips. We discussed the portion size and meal frequencies, salt reduction, moderate physical activity, especially resistance training to boost his testosterone, and stress management. I also started him on medications for his elevated blood sugar, diabetes. He was advised to do the BP log, the measurement of blood pressure, twice a day at home for a week, while applying all the lifestyle changes discussed in the office. He phoned me a week later to discuss his blood pressure measurements. His blood pressure means came to 140/90 seconds mmHg, and he had lost already 3 pounds just in 1 week of changing his diet. After 3 months, Smith had lost a total of 19 pounds. His hemoglobin A1c went from 11.5 to 9. His energy returned progressively. He was more confident. And he confided to me that his intimacy with his wife has started, showing some positive signs. Given his high motivation, I know that Smith was going to overcome all the problems he had been going through up until now. This case of Mr. Smith is very popular nowadays. It is showing us how food can make or break someone, including family dynamics and survival. If you know of someone struggling with prediabetes, or diabetes, excess weight, PCOS, fatty liver, or someone just willing to maintain their weight and energy naturally, please send them this video. Please comment and like this video to increase its visibility, hoping that it can save lives. Also, please tell me from which country you are watching this video from. Thank you for watching.